Hi, kitties. This is a murder mystery podcast, which I'm starting, and it is called Art of Murder, as you can see. And today we are actually doing an original piece, which is called Unlikely to Kill. We start off with the preface. Mr. and Mrs. Shaw were meant to be together since they had been kids. The two came from their mothers wanting to be more than friends, but family. They were thrust on each other as toddlers to play together, but became friends fast enough. Roshan was shy and a quiet kid. Kyra was a rowdy, mischievous child who couldn't sit still for more than 2 minutes at a time. They would get into trouble together, and Roshan would always tell exactly what they were doing when they were caught. Roshan couldn't lie to save his life, and after getting ratted out, she would hit him every time, sometimes on the head, sometimes a shove, really anything she could think of. Eventually, Roshan realized that he had to keep what they did together a secret, and from then on, Kyra liked having him to play with. They had each other's back, and as they were growing up and about to leave high school and go into college, they met each other less and less. But what their parents remembered about the two's friendship was that they could gang up on anyone together if one of them disliked that person. They acted as one. Kyra's mom would say to her husband one night, as she called Roshan to know where Kyra was, they would kill for each other. But ironically, the author knows that they would eventually want to kill one another. Chapter 1. Roshan was again angry at his wife, but he knew better than to bring up the argument with her. She would never understand why they were late to her friend's dinner party, as if she hadn't made it difficult for him to be on time. She takes a lifetime to get ready. And when he would want to grab something at the last second, she would be mad at him. Roshan stared at his deep-set brown eyes in the rearview mirror. She complained how slow he was driving. Well, she drives like a manic convict on the run, a car chase film sequence that is being shot in her head. Her friends don't really like him, and he doesn't like them either. Kyra is swaying side to side with her two friends holding her up. Roshan doesn't intervene. He can't control the situation. Geez, what an embarrassment. Roshan and Kyra are childhood friends. Their parents were friends, and so were they. Their parents thought about it for a second, how nice it would be to get them married, and the cruel joke was on these two. They got married, and while they knew all there was to know about one another, they felt like strangers. She was adventurous, would be a cliched understatement. She made spontaneous plans and would tell him at the spur of a moment that they had to go out. Sometimes he would think that to the outside world he must seem that she wore the pants in the relationship. That was fine by him. It didn't matter who wore the proverbial pants. He just wanted to have a quiet, simple life. She at times seemed allergic to peace, he chuckled, thinking. It had been a long day at work. He worked at a marketing agency as a creative director. His job was exciting at the beginning when he was a wide-eyed fresh graduate. This seemed like a stable job that he needed at the time. He was going to be married any day then, and he did about 8 months after he started working there. The pay was good, but it kept him from creating his own work. He loved writing, but he wasn't really a writer. He would shy away from writing anything down because the thought of it not being something incredible was overwhelming. It would be accurate to assume that he was a perfectionist. That was one of the things she would come to detest about him in the end. As Kyra looked at his judging gaze, she felt like she could throw up. Why did she marry him? She could have been with any of the men lusting after her at any given moment. She liked men wagging their tails after her. It made her forget her insecurities for a while. Why had she ended up with the one man not capable of showing any affection? He was kind and courteous, but that was it. That summed up their marriage. There was no excitement left in the relationship. When they did share intimacy, it felt their love language was distinctly different. He preferred small gestures of compassion, he called it, and she wanted grand gestures of affection. It doesn't seem like it should be impossible to find a middle ground, or that these two could be so far from one another. But as they lived, it was true of their marriage. From the kitchen, she could hear Sami and Rehan talking. Rehan had seen her going into the bathroom while trying to hide her tears. They have fought on the way here. Roshan never seems to understand why she takes so much time and care into getting ready. She wants him to compliment her. He is generous with compliments when it comes to anyone. He could find anything kind to say about someone. Their problem wasn't because he wasn't a good person. He was kind, sweet. He was trying his best. Their best just wasn't working, and she knew she couldn't leave him. Their parents would never understand. Their parents would never let them live it down. They weren't happy. Only death could part them now. Chapter 2. As the car speeds, the fog extends its thousands of arms to envelop the car. Roshan clutched the side of the passenger seat. Kyra, you shouldn't speed in this weather. So what am I supposed to do? Let her die? I'm not saying that. I wish you'd just yell sometimes. You must be tired sitting there all the time on that high horse. Roshan scoffed. Kyra hated this. Roshan knew that well. He knew he didn't need to say anything to get back at her for that comment. His silence was worse to her. Roshan opened up the shoebox he was holding. The injured bird was lying on its side. She will live. The wings will grow back, Roshan said, trying to convince himself. Roshan hears something move in the box. The small bird can move. What a relief. Are we lost? As Roshan asked this, the possible implications of that question wasn't lost on him. A sad little pun there, he snickered. What's so funny? Kyra asked sarcastically. Nothing really, just an inside joke. It bothered Kyra how he felt comfortable. He didn't feel comfortable sharing his thoughts with her. The car speeds up. The road is barely visible. How can she even see where she's going? But Roshan knew better than to question her judgment. As Roshan sees two faint headlights far in the distance, he remembers he called out to her. The car continued at the same speed though, still. The car veers off the road. Chapter 3. For those of us who are never able to resolve anything, the story ends here. But for the author of the story, this marks a shift in them both. They both have now realized that they fantasize about death. It seems better to them than their life together. To the average person, this seems like an overdramatic statement. To these two, talking about their relationship was something they never did. Two people that only had a long history and no present. It became increasingly suffocating to be around each other. The car didn't hit anything, thankfully. The tire had gone over the pavement and the car had jumped back on the road, still accelerating. Kyra screamed and the car halted to a stop, the brakes screeching with the force they had made home safely. The bird hadn't made the night. Kyra would rescue anything that needed help. He felt like a lost puppy sometimes that she had sought to rescue. But then, as the responsibility became a burden, he was abandoned emotionally, while still belonging to her in every other way. Kyra felt her heart heavy with grief. The bird had died despite all their efforts. The baby bird had fallen from its nest, and the parents had pecked at it multiple times till it had fallen from the tree again. And their cat had gotten a hold of it. The vet had told them that all they needed to do was nurse it back to health now, although the chances were slim of it surviving. It was sad how once they leave the nest, you aren't able to belong anywhere. It is sad how once you leave the nest, you aren't able to belong anywhere. She often felt like she had no nest. The person that had felt like home to her was now an island that she couldn't reach. She didn't understand why they were like this. "What's for dinner?" His voice broke her somber train of thoughts. "What would you like?" "Well, I thought we could eat out today. It's good you haven't cooked already." Kyra seemed surprised by this. Kyra seemed surprised by this. He's making an effort. I should too. The phone rings. Her cell phone. It's Rehan. He seems to be getting more and more friendly with her since he saw her at that party. Is he trying to sweep in on her? Roshan stared at the phone on the counter. Crap. It's not really crap here in the writing, but you get it. Okay. No. You have nothing to hide. She cuts the call in a panic. Why didn't you pick it up? Oh no, I will talk to him tomorrow at work. I'll get ready. You freshen up. You can leave in 20 minutes. Sounds good? Sure. Kyra never imagined Roshan to be jealous of anyone when it came to her. Why would he? She was a stunner, as he called her, and she didn't care how many men flirted with her. He was someone she desperately wanted. She would never show how obsessed she was with every detail as she got ready. No matter how many heads she turned, his head would always be in the clouds, away from anyone's reach. They were two friends that acted like a couple. She would wonder from time to time if he actually found her attractive, personally or just objectively. The waiter showed them to a table. As they sat down, Kyra starts talking about how it's going with her firm. Kyra is an intern at a law firm. She plans on opening her own law firm with Rehan and his girlfriend Esha. Rehan isn't really capable enough for her to deem him as a good partner, but Esha is. But because they're dating each other, Kyra seems to have noticed that Esha doesn't want him to think she's more capable and competent at her job than he is. Their internship is about to end soon, and Kyra would prefer it if he started working at another firm and not with them. Esha and Kyra have been friends since law school. She acts like a bimbo around him. It's repulsive. Why does she put up with him? Roshan doesn't like Rehan either. That call from him bothered Roshan, but he doesn't mention it. Rehan gives him the creeps. He doesn't care if he finds his wife attractive because Kyra would never give him the time of day. But his involvement in her professional life, worries him. Rehan is one of those people that will create trouble for people around him. Kyra seems happy, though, about her plan to work with Esha, so he doesn't mention his distaste. He knows that he has to make sure she doesn't jeopardize her career over someone her friend is dating. He makes sure that his face shows how much he's paying attention to every word. This seems to be going well. This dinner might smooth things over for a couple of days. Well, hopefully. Anyway, how is work going for you? She asks him, taking a bite of the baked pasta off his plate. It's going, I guess. It's at this point simply boring. Editorial shoots are still a bit of fun, but I miss the thrill of a new challenge. I think I finally want to start writing again. This made Kyra look up from her perfectly cooked ribeye steak. She continued to cut a bite worth of it while looking at him, the buttery juices oozing out of the meat. What would you like? Sorry, what would you write? I don't know yet. She hummed. He wasn't sure if it was directed at him or the food. Roshan stared at his own hands, gripping the butter knife and the fork in the other. He knew what he wanted to write about. Her. What he had never told anyone was how he had saved her from herself one night, right before they had gotten engaged. She had a boyfriend before they tied the knot, and if Roshan hadn't picked up her panicked call, she would have likely been in jail right now. The boyfriend had died from an overdose, at least. That's what the forensic report said. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and he had described how it was a high unlike anything he had experienced, which was what the medication was supposed to do, stabilize his extreme moods. And she had taken one pill as well. They were alone in the apartment the boyfriend shared with his friend. Roshan didn't really understand to this day what exactly had happened that night. Kyra had called him and in a hysteric half-scream, asking him if she should make him throw up. She had said that his mouth was foaming and it looked like he was having a seizure. Before he could say anything, though, he heard her blood-curdling scream. She was wailing. He was still, and she didn't think he was breathing. What do I do? What do I do? He could still remember her voice. That was the first time he had felt that she depended on him to rescue her. Now we will be looking at chapter 4 in another video. I hope you liked it. This is an original piece and I'm not a narrator. I'm not really good at it. So if you want to read the real chapters, you can do that on my Instagram. I'll post it there. It's by the same name, Spirit Kitty Tarot. I really hope someone likes it or someone watches it. I'm not really, I don't expect anyone to be watching this, but if you are, please like, share, and subscribe. And if I get more or enough views, I will be posting more stuff on this podcast. So thank you for watching.